or do you just you've only crisscrossed in comments on LinkedIn?
Actually, Lori is a proud supporter of artist communities, which is where I used to work before I relocated closer to home. So if she knows how artists operates, which is my passion, and Lori and I are going to be working hopefully together to bring some stuff to the community I'm at now so that we can educate the residents and the family, but the community as a whole. So
I'd like to learn more about that too. So please include
yes,
me.
I want your book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Which one?
Well,
I know
I'd
about
like
two
to
of
say
them.
which one, because I
we're
write
gonna do
about how to take care of seniors without killing yourself, but also how to take care of yourself and teach other people how to treat you better. And then I also write women's fiction. So if we're talking about aging excellently, I'm doing everything I've ever wanted to do at 68. It's great.
And you don't look 68. Oh my goodness.
Yes, this is what 68 looks like. This is what I tell people every single time. And I work for it. I'm in the gym, you know. It's just the best time of my life. I mean, I wouldn't be 30 for all the money in the world. I was too stupid.
But it's what you look like. And if someone says you look your age, then that's great, because what you look like is a person who is interactive and going places and not just experiencing, but you are creating change. Cheryl, before we went live, before we started recording, you were saying like 5 different things. And what I thought was this woman, both you and Lori, were seeing gaps like deserts where nothing was happening. You're like, why aren't the big guys doing this? I guess I'm going to have to do this. Well,
that's what I was saying. Maybe the big guys are about to do it, because President Biden just issued executive orders that increase the visibility and resources for family caregivers and for working care workers who are underpaid, underappreciated, undertrained. But in 2022, the legislation actually came out in 2017, and there was a 2022 white paper on strategic initiatives. And as I read it, there were no clinicians. I mean, nothing there. And we're the only people everybody's going to see. Everybody's going to get a prescription refilled, get a blood pressure checked, end up in the emergency room. And so I gave a presentation to the National Health Services workforce about how to set up practices and increase access. And there's just so much to do out there. So my goal is to try to get it into the training so that people who have their hands on care plans know where all the resources are, like the things that Lori has accumulated. And she said, there's all this stuff out there nobody knows about. And I'd like to hear more about what she's doing too.
Oh my goodness. And Lori, you were saying, and I'm just going to say right away, hi, Steve. He's been coming in and listening and just, he's meeting you, he's got his own stuff going on. I can't wait until he comes on and gives what he has to offer. Lori, you were also, which one of you, was it Lori or Cheryl? Michelle, you came in and I was just listening to them, said, if a doctor just has a poster on his wall, this is what you can do, especially with a dementia diagnosis. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should say it goes with everything. But if you just a poster on the wall to be able to go, here is something you need now. And the doctor doesn't have to know all of those on the top of his head. But again and again, it was the daughter of former President Ronald Reagan, who said there needs to be something twice a week in every county or hospital that's for people who are going, the paper says this dementia or Alzheimer's or this form of dementia. Now what? There needs to be an in-person gathering, and that's what she was working
Well,
on.
there
And
are now. I mean, online, in churches,
yes,
there's all kinds of things happening in communities. And like one of the things that Lori said is there's all this stuff out there nobody knows anything about. So we've got to get better at getting that information out. But I think it's more than a poster that a doctor should have on her wall. I think it needs to be a resource file that the person who's giving out the prescriptions and giving out the test results and giving out all of the things that you get when you leave the office needs to be able to hand somebody that. Not
Well,
just something on the wall. It needs to be something that they get in their hands, that these are the numbers that you call, you know.
but the problem is, and I hate to interrupt, but I think
Mhm.
this is really important. The problem is they're worried about being sued. They're worried about, linking up to anything on the internet that's not theirs. I can get the doctors, the nurses, the clinic managers all on board, and then it goes to the next level. We've created Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory that everyone can be a part of. I mean, we vet people. We don't want scammers and things like that.
right.
In this network, we have 150 categories that people can search, and we can't. Everyone is so protective of their own stuff. And so right now we have more small to mid businesses on there because they can't compete with the big businesses
Mhm.
to be able to be found. And I mean, we've got these silos out there. And if we get this information into the clinics, and again, my area is dementia, but this goes for all different areas. We need to be able to mine that information easily. And one of the biggest problems I hear from people over and over again is the government sites are too big.
Oh,
The
yeah.
big conglomerate companies is too big. There's too many of them. Everybody wants to go ahead and I like this concept, but we want to brand it our way, and then we don't want to put everybody in it. And all that does is build mistrust. And we
Right.
have to look at all levels, in terms of what can help family caregivers and care partners, care companions, carers, whatever you want to call them. And one of the biggest things that is missed is the voice of the patient and the family in that circle. They are loaded with information,
Right.
as well as the clinicians. And we have to get over this falsity of that we know it all, or we know what's in our backyard. Well, you know what? Your backyard's not flipping big enough.
Right.
There are so many things that we have learned across the pond. Dementia friendly communities, memory cafes, those weren't our concepts, but we act like they were. And we have to be much more gracious about sharing concepts, about saying there's not enough of them. We have to stop being afraid of competition and
Right.
embracing it, going, my gosh, we're really making a milestone here. We've got a lot of competition. This is great because the need is there. And it's
But
huge.
one of the things I think that helps, and if, for example, if your information was available on the website of the National Council on Aging,
Mhm.
there are people whose reputation sort of transcends some of that,
Mhm.
like the Aging Life Care Association. These are
Mhm.
national organizations, been in existence forever. And if you get your information associated with them, and they're very open. I'm on the board of National Council on
Mhm.
Aging. They're very open to looking at all kinds of ways to improve the lives of older people in this country, not from caregiving, but also financial stability, hunger, housing, I mean, everything. So I think that would be a good alliance to help get this out there. And for people who already have a national footprint,
Mhm.
like the RF Foundation for Aging,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's Association. I mean, there's a lot of ways to work with people who are already visible
Yeah.
rather than having to reinvent the wheel. And I really would like, Lori, to introduce you to the
Mhm.
folks at National Council on Aging.
Yeah.
I think they would like to know you.
Well, the problem I've run into is I'm a nonprofit, or I'm not a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And so what I found is government agencies and nonprofit agencies don't always like to collaborate with a for-profit, even though I don't make that much money. I mean, my goal
Nobody in aging makes
is
that much money. You're
is
right.
I mean, is really from the heart. My mom lived with this disease for 30 years, and I thought this is ridiculous.
Mhm.
People have got to get connected. And so You know, I've come from the angle of raising all voices, using multimedia because everybody learns differently, being inclusive. And, you know, I have an international presence on a shoestring budget because I said, I can't live like this anymore. I can't stand to have families go through this. And I took my life savings and my retirement and said, I'm going to make a difference, big or small. I don't care what it is, but something's got to change because there's too many silos. And I think the pandemic has helped change that more, where people are realizing staff is short, money is tighter, and that we need to collaborate. But I just think we all have to really learn how to play in the playground and lift one another up, and expose what everyone else is doing instead of being afraid of it.
I think that I'm just really hopeful about this executive decision that's gone out, that maybe that is going to give some power behind that collaboration. And I'm just hopeful that happens.
I am too. I saw that and I was so excited.
Yeah, I had to get up off the floor. It was just amazing.
Michelle, have you heard about it?
Actually, no. I mean, the one biggest thing that that I have been focusing on is, the drugs that are available and the funding that's not going to be there for our seniors under the Medicare. That's the biggest one that I've had my ear on, but I haven't heard about this one. I'm going to have to research
yesterday, Biden-Harris administration put out information of an executive order that is going to increase funding for and attention on the issues of family caregivers and care workers who are underpaid, undertrained, so that's going to be a big issue. And the other thing is I gave a presentation with Secretary Barrera about the Inflation Reduction Act that decreased the out-of-pocket costs for insulin and made sure that everybody can now get shingles vaccine, which was a big barrier because it's 2 shots at a couple $100s a piece. And now that's paid for. So there's some things beginning to happen. It's not enough and it's not soon enough, but I think it's an opportunity for all of us to get involved.
Well, and I think we're never going to get the services we need if we don't have platforms to be able to hear the voices and what their concerns are. What are they going through in their individual homes or communities or services? We really have to have an open, honest discussion and not be offended by what anybody says, but just listen to their truths in order to fix the problem ahead.
I'm so grateful
hoping that with this executive legislation that some of those forums will open. And that's why I've been on the phone with the Rosalind Carter Center and the National Alliance for Family Caregiving and Asian Life Care Association to see whether we can start getting some of those conversations happening so that we can inform them, because the legislators don't know what people need as well as caregivers know what they need. And trying to get those voices. I mean, there's a chapter in my book called Care Warriors because I had to give them their own chapter. I did a focus group to have them go through everything I was doing in the book The Doctor Is In. And they gave me so much wisdom, I had to give them their own chapter. I mean, caregivers know what they need more than anybody else knows. And trying to get those voices out there is important.
And I agree with Cheryl. I mean, to hear the voices of the caregivers is truly what's going to help impact that and make it more successful. Because if you haven't taken care of someone or loved someone who has the disease, you have no idea what you're fighting for. So they have to listen to the people and they have to take their voices. So.
And we have to do more than that. Like I've done, when I got into this business in 2009, I wanted to take a different approach, so I started the radio show where everyone's welcomed all around the world. And I do dementia chats where I raise the voice of people living with dementia. They pick the topic and they have wonderful insights, but not just to hear it once in a town hall meeting, but actually have it out there for people to be able to hear and connect, because it inspires people, it gives them hope, and it makes them not feel all alone.
Right.
And, if we can get this information starting, like you said, at the clinician's office, that is going to change the diagnosis process, on a huge level. Like for dementia, for example, people walk in, they get a prescription, they get another appointment, and on their way out, they're told, get your affairs in order. Not too uplifting. They go out into the car, they cry for 2 hours because they can't even drive home. They're lucky if they get, the number to the Alzheimer's Association. And if they gave them, let's say, a flyer of this is a resource you can go to, and give them a couple of examples, it's going to change the doctor's perspective of there's nothing I can do for you. I don't know, because many of them don't know, or they're very, very limited. And it's gotten a weeny bit better, but just very, very little. And those are kind of pockets. But that would change the whole trajectory of the disease process. Instead of people looking at end of life, they're going to look at living life fully. They're going to be looking at support. They're going to not feel so alone and not so uneducated, and know that, and then also recognizing the whole emotional side of any type of chronic illness too. That's kind of avoided, and that's like a huge piece of the puzzle. These major diseases like this, they're not a disease of one, they're a disease of society. They have this huge ripple effect, and we have to package that together.
And it affects the whole family. I mean, before I was saying that I took care of my mother, and even though I'm a geriatrician, when you grieve like a child, and all of your degrees mean absolutely nothing when it's your mother that looks at you and says, do I know you? I mean, all of that goes out the window. And there's a living grief, particularly with people with dementia, because people with Alzheimer's disease can look like themselves until very, very late. And every time you come into the room, your spirit reaches for a response you're never going to get again. Somebody needs to talk about that and let people know that what they're feeling, they don't need to feel guilty for being angry or being frustrated or any of that. And I don't think it's ever going to happen at the hands-on clinician level. I don't think it will ever happen there, because the way the business of medicine is structured and all the throughput, that's not going to happen. But if people can learn how to pass this off to somebody who does that, that's the challenge that I have. People always say they don't have time. You don't have to have time. You have to know who to call.
Yeah.
Michelle, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's why I'm passionate about what I do. So I don't just focus on my loved ones inside of the community that I work for. I actually take it out to the community outside, and not just outside of the walls of our community, but to other states and countries. I'll do webinars and I bring people on, and I always want to make sure they have that tangible to take away, because while I love Lori and I can listen to her speak all day, I'm not going to remember everything Lori says. And so that's why I like to get speakers who are authors of books, so that my families and the caregivers can take away that tangible with them from that. So everything that we're doing, in my area, I'm making sure that I try to spread it as far as I can, because I may be here in Virginia, but if I can touch someone in another state from a webinar that I'm doing, then I know that I've done what my calling is for. So I am just trying to get it out there as much as possible, because it's something that I'm very passionate about. So
another place that I'm trying to work is through houses of worship. I did a conference at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, which is a national conference of Black pastors. And because everybody, particularly the largest churches, have caregiving ministries and health ministries. And I've been trying to work with them to develop that kind of resource library within the church. And because the lady who's sitting next to your mother in church is going to know whether she bathed better than you will. And congregations are aging, and the pastors just are not being trained to put together support systems. The church hears the first cry of help, whether it's a church or a synagogue or a Baha'i temple, whoever they are. They're going to hear the first cry of help, and they have to be able to respond. And again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. If they can know how to refer people and make sure that they get to where they need to get. So that's another area that I'm also trying to get into.
Fran Ebbs, I don't know if you know her, but she has a whole curriculum and stuff for churches. and she just does a fantastic job
Yeah,
with,
I'd like to meet her.
yeah.
In Chicago, we had this thing called Reach to Faith that worked with Northwestern's Alzheimer's Center. It was like 6 churches.
Mhm.
And they developed a curriculum and made sure that any time you walked into any of those churches, you could get whatever information you wanted. And so I think that needs to be distributed. And we don't, like you said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to work together.
Well, and some of them, are having actual dementia-friendly services
Mhm.
where the service is
Mhm.
totally different. It's shorter. It meets their needs so much better. And we have to get people. I'll never forget speaking at a alumni group for the University of Minnesota. I was talking about memory cafes, which I think are a great social gathering for people with dementia and their care partners. And initially, I was told, well, you can't have them together, and it's like, well, where do you think they are? 95% of the day they're together. We need to
Mhm.
teach people to
Yeah.
live graciously together. And somebody from a church stood up and she was so proud. And I was thrilled that she was doing this on one hand. And she says, we have a memory cafe. And I just want people to know. And then as she was sitting down, she says, we meet in the basement. So, they don't have to feel embarrassed. And I'm like, don't put them in the basement.
No.
Don't put them in the basement.
But see, part of that is unrealistic expectations by the
Mhm.
people around them. And you need to try to make people be who you want them to be. You
Mhm.
have to go into their reality. You can't bring them into your reality. My mother used to shake hot sauce on pancakes, and my
Mhm.
brother used to go nuts. I was happy she was eating. So it really is a lot of times the best treatment for people with memory loss is to treat the caregiver.
Mhm. Well, and we have to get out of that mode because I personally feel with most chronic illnesses, we have marketed by fear,
Oh, yeah.
not by hope. And
Mhm,
there's
mhm.
still life. Life is a journey of adjustments, and this is one more. And granted, it's going to stretch us sometimes, but
Mhm.
boy, I have a saying, and I really believe this is true. My mom's disease, though I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, it was probably the biggest gift I'll ever receive in my entire life, because it taught me so many beautiful life lessons about really connecting with people, learning that there are multiple ways to engage, that you never ever really lose a connection, even when someone can't say your name. I experienced that after 3.5 years. One day my mom just said my name, and I ended up, she woke up out of a dead sleep and said my name and giggled and then went back to sleep. And I sat on her bed and I cried for 2.5 hours,
Right,
like just
right,
crocodile tears, just sobbing, going, I didn't know if she knew me. But
right.
just realizing that those connections are
And
there.
it's you got to work on what can work. After my mother didn't
Yeah.
recognize me, I could do her nails, we could dance, we could listen to Count Basie. I mean, things that I remembered who she was and what she liked. But one of the problems is before 1960, if you got sick, you got better, you died.
Mhm.
Since then, we've done chronic illness, but our thoughts are still back on cure. It's not
Yep.
back on care. And so if people can't cure, they don't know what to do. And that's physicians and advanced practice people too. A+ since kindergarten, didn't go to prom because you were in the library. So they're used to fixing things. And that's never been our job. Our job has never been to cure. It's always to use medical science to give people the life they value.
Mhm.
And that means if sometimes you don't just do something, you stand there. I mean, you don't have to do anything. You have to hold hands. You have to play jazz for them, find out what makes them happy. It's not about cure, but that's not how the training is.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I would like to see changed.
Well, I would love to see prescriptions change too, that they would prescribe music. Music, there's
Yep.
there's so much evidence, about the power of music, and we all take it for granted because we have it in our
Yeah.
lives. But boy, when it is so powerful, and to buy somebody an iPod and to be able to load some music on, I mean,
Mhm.
it's pittance compared to what it is for a prescription. In Europe, Norms McNamara, who's living with Lewy body, he's gotten donations, and they have iPods, and they play music for people in the ambulance, so that drive's not so scary. I mean, he's getting it in all these different places. They have symbols
Smart.
for dementia, the purple angel on trash trucks and buses. And, you know, the conversation is open, and the government has prime ministers that are behind all of this and
Right.
really coordinating. And yet even though it's on that government level, it's very much in my eyes, and again, I'm overseas here, so I'll see it probably a little bit differently than they do, but it's so creative, and I think here we've gotten so much in a box where it's got to be black and white, and it's got to meet these demands,
It has to be evidence-based.
and
There's got to be p-values on it. And it can't just be that it makes people feel better.
yeah, and that's the goal. I mean, how do you want to live quality of life? How do you sum it up for yourself? It's about how you feel. It's not what task you have. It's not about the items that you have.
Yes.
And so
How you feel.
we really have to switch that. And I think, you know, part of our problem too in the world is, and I think it's really evident nowadays with all the problems we're having, you know, all over, even with the guns and the shootings and things, is people aren't being responsible, and they don't understand every decision they make affects someone else. So if it's not to talk to somebody, or if it's to say something nasty, or if it's, you know, no matter how we act, there's this huge ripple effect, and it affects people we don't even know. And we have to we have to teach people to become much more conscious in their multi-sensory communications, you know.
Lori.
And also to have more self-confidence. I think that lack of self-confidence is the root of all evil. It's not money. Because people are so defensive, you know. And strength is not this, it's opening and saying, bring it, because I can handle it. I can, you know, if you fall, you get up. I mean, we've stopped teaching resilience, even to kids. You know, everything's a success culture. Everybody who shows up gets a trophy. You don't let people fail. We don't let people figure out how what they did wrong makes a difference. It's all got to be perfect. And we've got to get away from that. Life is messy.
Yep.
You know? And you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. We've taken that away in a lot of ways.
Laura, you opened a door. Michelle, I'm going to come to you, and the door is music. So we're going to talk about country music for just a few moments. I'm grateful for my husband who's producing this show, and he looked up information and put it into the chat column, also put it on the screen with the Biden-Harris, you know, less than 48 hours ago, I think they knew that you were going to be on the screen today. They said, let's get this through because we want, you know, these particular people to be talking about this. Let's get this, you know, on the docket so that it'll come up here. I'm certain that was discussed somewhere in DC. Thank you for laughing. I think I'm so funny. Michelle and Lori both have had interactions with a person who has written a song. I saw the comments on the official YouTube release of that song, which I think that song is several years old now. It wasn't a song that I knew about, but it created a feeling in, again, the people in the comments are the family members who are caring right now or are grieving right now. Still, those years and the loss of a person whose mind completely changed, whose reactions differed, and in those few moments they knew you, or they remembered who you were in their life or something, but there was comment after comment that sounded like this: we just picked out the casket, Dad and I, or I, you know, went to the park and there was something about the Frisbee going by that, you know, your song came back to my mind because my loved one reacted to that Frisbee. They're not just blank stairs. So there's the door opening for Michelle. It wasn't just a blank stare, but there was a reaction. And I had a little personal party in that moment. So, Michelle, go right ahead. Why am I so excited about blank stares and country music?
Well, Jay Allen does send his apologies. He actually is in the studio today, and then he'll be doing an actual interview for us tomorrow. So
Good.
Jay Allen is a country artist. He's an Alzheimer's celebrity champion. He's also now recently a season 22 voice contestant. In 2017, his mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 51. Let me repeat that one more time, the age of 51. 2 years, 9 months after her diagnosis, he lost his mom at the age of 54. Before that happened, when his dad called to let him know that something's wrong with mom, that she got lost trying to find her way back to work, and they got the diagnosis, it moved pretty quickly. And so he wrote the song Blank Stares about his mom and for his mom. And the video that went viral, he actually had his mom up on stage when he sang that song. And I think it was like 500 million views that video got posted. At that time, he raised $50 million for Alzheimer's research. The president of Sony heard that song and called him and said, I know exactly what that song is about. He had a loved one that had the diagnosis as well. He said, hey, Jay, and I'm paraphrasing because Jay's told me the story so many times. He said that, if we can do this song, I want all the money to go to Alzheimer's, and Jay was okay with that. On The Voice, he got to tell a little bit of a story, and John Legend asked him to sing that song. Could he share it? He sang it. After that song, the song got refreshed, and another $50 million has been raised for the Alzheimer's research or Alzheimer's Association in less than 6 months of him being on the show. There are so many songs that Jay sings that is like Blank Stares is about Alzheimer's. It's about the disease. It's about the feeling that he has. Sorry, because when he does it, it breaks out what you go through. So, but he also touched families, loved ones with cancer and other diseases. But Blank Stares, his music just speaks to you. I can't tell you, it's just the feeling, everything, every emotion he's got is put in his songs. So I am actually honored and blessed that he will be coming to Prince William County, Virginia on May 6th to perform. We're going to bus our residents over so they can have the first time of a concert that they haven't had in a long time. And it's open for the community to come out, and all the money is going directly to the Alzheimer's Association. So I'm, like I said, thoroughly honored to have him perform. This is the second time. I'm such a fangirl. The second time that he'll perform for me, but this is one of the biggest concerts that I've done with him. This will be, the venue holds over 1,000 people. So I'm excited, and I've seen it firsthand, the power of music. When the stages of dementia start and your loved one is losing their ability to get all of the words out, but you play that favorite song that they like, and they sing every word like they've never forgotten it. It is the most heartwarming, emotional thing to watch. And if they lose their ability to speak, you can still see it in their facial expressions or the tapping of their feet or their hands. And that's when I'm dealing with loved ones of families, I try to let them know the power of music. And they report back to me all the time about, thank you for telling us that, because they were able to get their loved one back for just a little bit. So music is extremely powerful. I'm, like I said, excited about this concert and bringing more awareness to Alzheimer's. And, another reason I'm passionate is I don't want this to come off sounding wrong, but everyone seems to get that awe moment when a celebrity is diagnosed with the disease. But Alzheimer's and dementia they don't care if you're famous. They don't care if you're rich, how much money you have, or even how old you are. And that's why it's important for us to get together to get this information out, because people need to understand how to help themselves, help their loved ones, but also help them try to prevent trying to get the disease in the future. So
persons of notoriety.
Sorry. I get on a I'm very
No,
passionate.
no. Yeah. Persons of notoriety do create a ladder out of the silos that we keep talking about. Get it out of the silo. I had to ask someone, what does that mean? Oh, well, everybody who knows about aging, cognitive challenges, whatever, they find each other, they know about it. But what about that person who's going, we lost family members to accidents and heart attacks. And then what is this? I mean, I've heard of it before, but I know nothing. And that was me. I felt I knew nothing, even as a hired caregiver, that I could give to the families because I was in their home. I was serving the person that was, enhanced by assistance. But it was like, do you know anything that will help? Do you know a better way to handle this? Safety, etc. And I thought, wow, I wish there was something. And boom, everything happened. So I create this meager little, my husband helped me create this meager little site where I was trying to show things that I had done with people. And I think, oh, this is so silly, but it's worth it if it helps one person. And because this person has gained notoriety through TV, or maybe it's in politics, or, maybe it's on the news. Thank you for people who use that power of the attention of many people who say, hey, you're a business owner, executive. Hey, you're a farmer. And when it happens to you, when it happens to the loved one of someone you're friends with, you're going to be able to say, I know something that's going to help. It isn't just get your affairs in order,
Right.
and try to survive this, because 1 year, let alone 17 years, 30 years, is a shame. It's not acceptable that people don't have the right kind of shower chair, the right kind of, knowing about what music can do for a person who can't do anything more. And I'm just going, I'm so glad those things are out there, but thank you for pushing it out. And thank you to people with notoriety that, just catapult information out there and have the courage to say, this is not a pleasant subject, gonna talk about it anyway.
Yep.
And Lori, I just want to say, to lighten the mood a little bit, Michelle had said earlier, I love listening to Lori, but I'm not going to remember everything she says. So Lori, if you put it to music,
You don't want to hear
it's
me
like,
sing.
let's sing the
Music and
songs
There
that
you
we
go.
learned
Put it
when
to
we were
music.
little.
Yeah. But you know what I try to do when
But-
I'm out there is I try to make things really simple so it's easy for people to remember. So, for example, and one thing I have to say about Jay Allen, I did interview him. If anyone wants to hear, he is just so authentic. Like, and I have to say, some celebrities
Down to earth.
aren't in the trenches, but Jay really gets it. Some people are hiring other people to do things, and same with Bruce Willis's wife. She's there, she's talking about it. There's a big difference between, in my mind, in terms of how that resonates with the general public. And Jay just does an awesome job. But I think so often we think things have to be really complicated. And one of the life-changing things for me in caring for my mom was I had to switch from being task-oriented, and I'd have my big, long to-do list, and it was all about her, and of course, I'm person-centered. And then all of a sudden, one day I snapped at her when she repeated herself 45 times in 10 minutes, and I didn't think it was funny. I didn't think it was cute. I didn't have time. I was exhausted. You're an overwhelmed person. And I thought, oh my gosh, she so did not deserve that. I have to do better. So I ended up interviewing a bunch of people. I came up with a tool that anybody can download. It's called Your Memory Chip. And instead of focusing on the things I have to do, which I still have to do, I first have to focus on, is she safe? Is she happy? Is she pain-free? It's about her feelings. And what I found was that when we have resentment, and most of us do, if we talk about it or not, there's a twang in our voice of, boy, I didn't see this playing out in my life. This isn't what I had planned. But we can't, when we have that emotional hurdle, we can't really be person-centered, or what I like to call relationship-based, because we have a need. And we always take care of ourselves first, if we know it or not. On that level, we can't give fully. But when you switch to that safe, happy, and pain-free, it also allows you to be in the moment. It allows you to be content when they're content. It allows you to create joy. Your whole focus is just different, in terms of being able to stop and really be present. And maybe you're just sitting on the couch with somebody in silence, but our energy passes between us. And I mean, we all have that person that we're just so comfortable with. And we don't need to speak. And we give so much of that up to this disease, and we have to claim it back,
Well, I agree that you have to be in the moment and change your perspective, but sometimes you also do need to take time for yourself and
I
step
agree.
away.
Oh,
And I had a 58-year-old caregiver drop dead and leave two 80-year-old people here.
mhm.
She knew to the last pill when their prescriptions were going to be refilled, and she made sure they were safe and happy, but she hadn't had her blood pressure checked. It looked like that heart attack came out of nowhere. So people feeling comfortable doing what the fifth of my 5 keys to caregiver survival is to do what airline attendants tell you: put your mask on first.
Yep.
While you're taking care of the money and the doctors and the medicine and the comfort and all of that, you got to take care of the one thing that makes all that happen, and that's a caregiver.
Yep.
And sometimes it means arranging to be able to go to the movies or go get your nails done, and not feeling guilty about taking that time, because sometimes you step back before you can come back better.
Oh, that's true with my own, mom had dementia and my dad had brain cancer, and I had girlfriends that would ask me out for coffee every week. And I'd go, no, no, no. I had,
Yeah.
I was working full time, I
Yeah.
was a mom, wife, volunteered. I mean, and you don't give anything up in life. You just keep adding to it.
Right.
And I thought, I just don't have time. I don't have time. And one day I came from my folks' place, and I was feeling really overwhelmed, and they called me and said, will you come and have coffee with me? And I said, really snottily, yeah, I'll give you 10 minutes. Like, roll out the red carpet. Here I come,
Right.
and I got there. And the only reason I said yes in that moment was to get them off my back, because I felt like it was one more thing that I had to do. That's actually how I looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I had coffee. I stayed for 2 hours, and we laughed and we cried together. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized how empty my soul had become, because I
Right.
was too busy being busy. And so for me, I went to coffee every week,
Mm-hmm.
because I realized I was a much better person when I was
Right.
full. But we don't teach that. We don't,
No, and we need to teach that. We
and
need to
we,
say it's not guilty. You're taking care of their number one resource.
yep.
You're taking
And
care of their caregiver.
And as a
Um,
society, we judge, we
mhm.
judge caregivers big time, by the roll of our eyes or the sigh, or what's going on. It doesn't have to be words. And that needs to change too. Again, it gets back to the impact we have. Michelle, you were going to say something?
Yes, I'm sorry. So
You got to buzz
that's
in there
kind of
with
like,
us.
so groups, the support groups that I do, because I tell everyone I engage with that it is so important to take care of yourself. Even the statistics show that those who do not take care of themselves and they're a caregiver, their loved one will probably outlive them if they don't even just take an hour for themselves, just to step back and just breathe. So on the caregiver support groups that I hold, we switch them up. Sometimes we're education, but like this past month, it's all about them. So if I know that they're not doing it at home, they're going to come to my support group. I'm going to make sure I give it to them so that I know at least for 2 hours they've taken care of themselves. So they did some sound bath, sound bath immersion for an hour, and then I had them learn how to do the sound bowls, and they all took a sound bowl with them. So they took care of themselves. So every month we switch it up, and I'm going to make sure that they're taking care of themselves, even if they don't take the time. I'm going to make sure they give it to them, and it's so important for them to understand that their body is feeling everything that they're doing. They might not think it, but their body is truly absorbing it all, and they've got to stop, or they may not be here to take care of their loved one any longer. So
the other thing I like to do is try to remind people that the person who's so effective in the rest of their lives is still in the mirror. You know, I have executive women coming home, doing laundry, buying groceries, and said, "Do you make the coffee in your office? Have those groceries delivered?" You know, they just don't think about who they are otherwise. And that whole management piece, you are the CEO of your caregiving system. You know, so
Very good. Michelle, you said sound bowl, like BOWL?
sound bath immersion. Sound bath immersion was what they did for an hour. They basically, it's kind of like a meditation, but with all this amazing sounds, from harps to chimes, and you're laying on the floor. And I actually did it for myself because I had to take care of myself too. So for an hour, some people actually fall asleep, but the vibrations and the sound are so healing for the body. As far as it's stated that they help to, increase your immune system, lower your blood pressure, release, anxiety and stress. I can tell you for 2 days, I felt absolutely amazing. For 48 hours is like this, the way that how long it lasts. But the actual Tibetan sound bowl that's over 300,000 years old, 5 minutes on a sound bowl, your body feels the vibrations and the sound. And it's even good to do. Yay, Lori! It's even good to do it with your loved
Show it
ones.
again.
I'll do this.
yeah.
It is,
So there's
and
The
you can sit
vibration.
next to
It's
your
like a
loved one
reset
and
button. It's like, whoo, reset.
you can sit right next to your loved one who has the disease. They can feel the sound and the vibration. It works on animals. My dogs will sit and be absolutely chilled for 5 minutes that I'm playing the sound bowl. It's amazing. So it's little things like that I try to give back to the community. So is things for them to go back and take care of themselves. If I know that they come to something and I give them something back and I give them all the tools, then I know that there's no excuse if they don't take the time to do it for themselves. So it's extremely important, even if you're not a caregiver, to take a little bit of time for yourself. So, but being a caregiver makes it even that much harder. So,
well,
No, I'm going to plug
one
that.
other
I mean, yeah.
oh, I
yeah,
was just
Tibet,
gonna say, so nice
it's
you're
absolutely
giving them-
amazing.
I was
And I'm
just
so
gonna
glad Lori had hers to show. We didn't plan that, by the way. We did not plan that.
No,
But
no,
it is
this is my
absolutely
first
amazing.
sound bowl live stream.
what I love about Michelle, what you're doing is you're
It-
giving people a variety, excuse me, a variety of tools. There's not one way, because everybody's different. And then, as we go through life, different things work better than not. But all of these things that we're talking about, in my estimation anyways, we need to be teaching in school. We need to be teaching our children in kindergarten and even preschool about meditation and breathing. And I'll never forget going on a walk with my granddaughter, and she was riding her scooter and she just hopped off and she sat on the ground and she crossed her legs, and all of a sudden she's going, oh, just in the middle. And it was like, I was like, it was so precious, and I'm like, what was that all about? And she's like, it just felt right. I was feeling a little stressed, and I needed that, Grandma. And I thought, here she is, 5 years old. And I'm like, I wish I would have known a lot of these different techniques, or prayer. I mean, there's just so many options that are available to us that people don't know that they can integrate into their lives.
And they're sort of taught not to, because
So I'm going to do
we're taught
another
to be
plug.
busy. We're not taught
Hmm.
we're not taught the healing part of being still.
Exactly.
We're not taught that.
So
Just
one of the things that
peacefulness,
Lori said about
healing
prayer,
peace.
sorry, one of the things that Lori said about
Okay.
prayer is one of the educational webinars I've done and actual in person as well is Dr. Reverend Beryl Dennis. She has a book out called Caring for the Spirit of the Caregiver. And it is an amazing book that actually she took care of both of her parents till they passed away. The book is scriptures from the Bible to help them and little passages and notes that she's picked up from talking to other caregivers on how they can use those scriptures to help them get through their caregiver journey. It's a very powerful book too, and she just spoke for me here recently. So, the power of prayer is absolutely amazing. So,
I think that's important. But Michelle, I thought I heard you say something about the reasons why people don't access their care. So, you're giving them information on that, the 2 hours, so they really don't have a reason not to do it. But I think there are reasons. The guilt level that people have about taking care of
guilt
themselves,
is a big one.
the fear of not being in control, or the fear of the illusion that you are in control.
Right.
That, if you don't do something, if you're not vigilant every single
The
second, that you
promise.
can keep this.
That big promise that they made mom and dad. I
Yeah, but the
promise I
spirit
will
of
never
that
put
promise
you
was
in
that
the
you'd always
hole.
give the best care. And sometimes that doesn't mean doing it yourself.
But
all
when
the
you sit
time,
down with your
all the
loved
time,
ones
you
and
can't do it all.
Right.
All the time, you cannot do it all.
Mhm.
Don Vanderwerf, your voices are going around the world to the Netherlands. He has Q-Strip. It's about night sweats and the information that can be gathered from that. He is now, the entire nation of Netherlands has acknowledged that this is scientific and needs to be taught at the level. So he's got students all around who are mapping night sweats, trying to get information that will help people live, help them age better, help with cure for some things, and to understand, I mean, it's very uninvasive. It's amazing. He's cheering you on. It is at the point now that we've had the bowl and the vibration and an introduction to a book by an author that was presenting with Michelle. We now know what's going on in our nation and what's being brought forward, not just awareness, but also funding. And boy, do they go together nicely. As far as family caregivers, there's been, you two did not know each other. You did not meet.
That's three.
Cheryl, yeah, Lori and Michelle, but Cheryl and Lori and Cheryl and Michelle had not met each other or necessarily researched each other. And nobody had to tell you, please don't be shy. Tell us something that's important to you. We are
Shy?
at the, yeah, don't, so we're all talking. We're at the point where I would love for you to give your last words so that I can let you go on with your day. I can get this posted out. I can give the link to you so that you can share it with anyone, anywhere. I just shared out a children's book that has been written by Abby and Amanda, who are the daughters of Teepa Snow. And that was about 48 hours ago, and it has been viewed over 9,000 times. So yay for LinkedIn, yay for the internet, yay for people. Oh, Robin Roots is here, a registered nurse. I am so glad that you could be in on this. This is great. So I'm going to start with Michelle, then we'll go to Lori, and then we'll go and we'll finish off with Cheryl. Last words and any contact information. And when I post this out and I tag you in it, please put in any other links or anything that you would like to have shared. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, just leaving you guys with this one thing. Well, there'll be two things actually, is that dementia affects the brain. It never affects the heart. And I want people to understand that their loved one is still there. The disease is touching their brain, but not their heart. So please, please do not think that the disease has taken over completely. The Alzheimer's Concert for a Cure benefit with Jay Allen in Manassas, Virginia on May 6th. Doors open at 6. Show starts at 7. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite, and I hope to see you there. We're going to raise some money for the Alzheimer's Association. So thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. So
Wonderful.
Great. And for me, I guess I would just encourage people to really focus on shifting care from crisis to comfort. And I think one of the ways we can do that is through emotional-based training. If we don't include the emotions that people are going through, I think we're doing a lot of disservice. We have to create safe spaces for people to be able to be honest on what they're going through. Emotions aren't good or bad. They're just something that we all feel. It's how we react to them. And when we suppress them or make people feel that they have to suppress them, that's when they come out sideways and really bad. And we can avoid that, and we can grow together by showing compassion and empathy. So, feel free to go to my site, alzheimersspeaks.com. I have one whole page that's full of just a ton of free resources for you. That's what they're there for. And maybe you can be my next guest on Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. Having these conversations is so critical, and I just honored Christine to be part of your show. So thank you.
While dementia is everybody's focus, for me, it's about caregiving, because chronic disease, whether it's dementia or anything else, caregivers are in the middle of this. And having caregivers understand that you are the most valuable resource that your loved one has. So making sure that you find ways to take care of yourself and to get the information that you need, so you don't need to feel guilty. You know what you're doing, whether it's from Lori's site or Michelle's site or any other resource that you can find. Knowing what you're supposed to do really decreases a lot of your stress. And you can find my level of care prescription, my 5 keys to caregiver survival, on my website. It's drcherylwoodson.com. And my books, To Survive Caregiving, A Daughter's Experience, A Doctor's Advice, and The Doctor is In, Answering Your Questions, are both on Amazon, with my self-care books. I wrote a book for my daughter called 31 Days of Affirmations, and it will help you figure out how to take better care of yourself. I also just want to say that while we think about caregivers, we have to remember that 60% of newly self-identified caregivers are millennials and Gen Xers. And these are people in the middle of their becoming our doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs. And so we have to support them so that their lives, as well as their own retirement planning, can go forward, or our country's in trouble. We can't let them die too.
Yay. For the caregiver that still says, I'm the only one that can do it right, you're going to trip and have, a surgery on your wrist. You're going to have another family member that needs you in person now. You're going to have other things going on. I agree that it is a business and you are the CEO. And so prepare for the normal changes of life, the normal crises of life. Plan ahead, start practicing letting someone else come in on your territory, not do it the way that you do it. But they're keeping them safe, giving them something that continues their happiness, and making sure that they're pain-free until you return, and do it the way that you do it, and practice for that, because other things are going to happen. And that way you're already ready. You've got your plan enacted and you've practiced and you've done the fire drill and you know what to do when the bell rings, and you can be proud of how well you are training other people to do what you do so well. So that if you don't feel like you need to take care of yourself or you don't have time, there is your opportunity to run this business even better and to feel great about it. Because yes, your emotions, your feelings, they, there's one thing that affects everything as you live, as you age, as you caregive, and that is how you feel. So be direct about it. Make your plan. Just do it today. Practice for 5 minutes. Lay somewhere and feel some vibrations. Tap on some bowls, whatever it is. This has been fantastic. I can't wait for other people to benefit from this recording. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad that you know each other and have met each other today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the